Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. This is so great. I really appreciate your coming here, listening, and also giving me your impressions of what I'm about to talk about. There isn't any right or wrong because these are archetypes that are in all of us. So if you see something in one of the keys, and I call it the major arcana, the keys. If you see something in one of these keys, please go ahead and either ask or talk about what you see. All right, I'm going to begin my talk, which I have in a HUD. Welcome, everyone. My name is Enjah, and I'm a student of the Western Mysteries, or Hermetic Kabbalah. I am a fellow seeker sharing knowledge that comes from that tradition. This tarot tableau, which is above and behind me, and the deck are from Builders of the Atom, BOTA. For information on the history of the Western mystery tradition, organizations that work along these lines, and some of the authors who explain this tradition, please click on the box with the rose image on it. Attending these talks will give you methods to use the tarot in your own spiritual work, but no one else can do that work for you. If you are looking for a guru, a personal advisor, or instruction on fortune telling, please look elsewhere. Meditating on and working with the tarot on a daily basis will bring you much more than I can ever tell you, including insights that apply directly to you and your life. You can use whatever tarot deck you prefer as long as working with it leaves you feeling uplifted. The BOTA deck I am using is printed in black and white, and the student colors his or her own deck, which personalizes it quite a lot. The first stage of spiritual unfoldment is called bondage or mirth. In this stage, we are faced with a problem and come to see that we have created our own circumstances because of some error in our belief system. Once we change our beliefs, our circumstances must change to reflect the new concepts. The second stage is called awakening, in which our subconscious mind receives the new concepts we are incorporating. The higher self brings us a flash of insight in which we see, briefly, that the physical universe is composed of mental energy, that there is no separate existence for the material world. In the third stage, revelation, the subconscious mind multiplies the seed ideas given to her by the self-conscious mind, creating inner order. As we repeatedly visualize what we want, over time, they are manifested through meditating upon them. That's meditating upon these images we are creating. The fourth stage, organization, is all about balance. Our self-conscious mind now reviews the results of these new ideas about reality and begins to create outer order based upon them. We develop emotional equilibrium, which in the Buddhist system is known as equanimity, incorporating new patterns of behavior that are the opposite of the ones that are not helpful. We begin restraining our reactions to circumstances. This mitigates the karma associated with our former errors. We also begin to incorporate more and more light into the cells of our physical vehicle. In the fifth stage, called regeneration, we learn to listen to the inner teacher, the only true source of wisdom. This involves silencing the mental chatter. Now the light is so prevalent in the body that the body and mind are regenerated. The sixth stage of spiritual unfoldment is called realization. The self-conscious mind looks to subconsciousness to reflect superconsciousness. Once this is firmly established, the superconscious energy destroys the delusion of personality as separate from the one. The old personality dies away, and the regenerated personality rises from the ashes as an individual reflection of the one will, knowing that it lives in the eternal now. Today, we will be speaking on the seventh stage of spiritual unfoldment. On a lesser level, we reach this state whenever a problem is successfully overcome. On the macro level, this shows how an adept functions as an incarnate being. So, what is an adept? An adept is someone who is an expert or very good at something. A spiritual adept is an aspirant who has entered the grade of lesser adept or higher. No one can judge your level of spiritual advancement. The old saying goes, "Those who know don't say. Those who say don't know." Those who seem to be without spiritual aspiration may be taking a lifetime off after many incarnations of intense work on themselves. Some who say they are agnostics or atheists are doing more for humanity than those who claim to be devout. There is a very strong temptation amongst spiritual aspirants or seekers to compare their level of advancement to that of other aspirants. Whether we see ourselves as above or below others, giving attention to this idea is harmful to us. Feeling we are ahead of others is a huge detriment to spiritual unfoldment, known as spiritual pride. Feeling we are behind others harms us by causing discouragement or even despair. It is best to turn the attention gently away from such speculative thinking. It does nothing to help us in our work and can even delay our progress. Here is a story I heard years ago. A bodhisattva was starting on a journey to have an audience with the Buddha. As he began his journey, he passed an aspirant who was sitting in meditation. This fellow was a particularly dedicated aspirant, and although he was sitting in the hot sun and also on an anthill, where the ants were nibbling away at his flesh, he concentrated and stayed in meditation. When he noticed the bodhisattva passing, he called out to him, "Please ask the Buddha for me how many more lifetimes I have to do this before I reach enlightenment." The bodhisattva promised he would ask. Another aspirant, a young man who was much less serious about his meditation discipline and in fact enjoyed music and dancing when he should have been in deep contemplation, heard this exchange and called out to the bodhisattva, "Hey, please ask him for me too." The bodhisattva promised he would. A month later, returning from his pilgrimage, the bodhisattva came upon the serious aspirant, still in meditation despite the fact that his skin was burned by the sun and painfully eaten by ants. The monk said to him, "Well, what did the Buddha say?" The bodhisattva said, "The Buddha says you have to live 4 more lifetimes before you reach enlightenment." The aspirant was terribly distraught by this news and broke down weeping. I apologize for my dogs. Apparently the AC repair people are here, so there's going to be some barking in the background. The other monk, who was listening to music and dancing instead of meditating, called out, "And what about me? What did the Buddha say about me?" The bodhisattva looked at him for a moment and then said, "You see that tree over there? The Buddha said that as many leaves as are on that tree, that's how many more lives you must live before you can reach enlightenment." The dancing monk looked at the tree for a moment, smiled a big smile, and then said, "That's all? Cool." and danced with renewed vigor and joy. Then, at that moment, he reached enlightenment. I love that story. The 3 keys that are associated with this stage are Key 7, the Chariot, Key 14, Temperance, and Key 21, Cosmic Consciousness. Key 7, the Chariot. The astrological association is the sign Cancer. The power of consciousness is security will. The alchemical association is the process of separation. In the physical body, it represents the esophagus and stomach and the upper digestive organs. On the Tree of Life, it is path 18, connecting Bina, the cosmic mother, and Gebura, the sphere of severity, the cosmic will. The Hebrew letter is Cheth, meaning fence. The bodily function is speech. Working with this key will help with psychological boundary issues and give a sense of security and of being an individual emanation of and an unobstructed channel for the one will. In this key, we see a warrior king in his chariot. The battle has ended and he is victorious. The king is the higher self in the chariot of the personality. When an individual soul comes into incarnation, they are given a marked out area to work on. This world is a classroom where we are given a new personality, including a body, and a new situation based upon what the higher self determines that the soul needs to develop. This area or field is what we work on for the entire incarnation. Each new personality we receive has its own strengths and weaknesses, and it presents some new way of looking at things. Lifetime by lifetime, each of us is gradually becoming a strong and reliable center of expression for the higher self. We become more and more able to express the qualities of any sign of the zodiac at will, as needed. We remain a unique expression of the one will, rather than a rubber stamp or puppet. Our individual viewpoint is valuable to the higher self. Difference is celebrated. What is lost is our unhealthy reactions to circumstances. Key 14. Temperance. The astrological association is the sign Sagittarius. The law of consciousness it illustrates is the law of testing and trying. The alchemical association is incineration. In the body, it represents the buttocks and thighs. On the Tree of Life, it is path 25, connecting Tifereth, the higher self, and Yesod, the sphere of foundation, the automatic consciousness. The Hebrew letter is Samek, meaning prop or tent peg. The bodily function is to support the trunk. The buttocks and thighs give us the strength to be upright. Working with this key helps us invoke the holy guardian angel to burn away the samskaras or traces of past errors, which we cannot perceive with the self-conscious mind. At this stage, we have perfected our personality as much as we can, and we have surrendered the delusion of personal will. Now the higher self is in control. Through this path, the holy guardian angel, Michael, burns away all the dross and leaves the gold of regenerated human individuality. We invoke this work by saying often, daily if you can, and sincerely, I will look upon every circumstance as a particular dealing of God with my soul. Key 21, the world. The astrological association is the planet Saturn. The condition that is shown here is cosmic consciousness. The alchemical association is completion of the great work. In the etheric body, this is associated with the root chakra, associated with the base of the spine. On the tree of life, it is path 32, connecting Yesod, the automatic consciousness, and Malkuth, the sphere called the kingdom, which represents the physical universe and the body. The Hebrew letter is Tav, meaning the mark or signature. Working with this key brings us a vision of the goal of spiritual work, which is to live a life of perfect freedom, perfect health, and perfect joy, a life that administers the one will in daily circumstances. In this stage, we have surrendered to the higher self and given up the delusion of personality as a separate entity. The illusion remains, however. An adept has a personality as surely as anyone else. She or he is a radiant individual, bringing healing, joy, and comfort to all those around her or him. We may be near an adept and never know it. There is no need for them to say anything at all. Their actions and energy radiate their state unequivocally. An adept is unfailingly kind and yet impersonal. In the presence of such a person, everyone is uplifted in a subtle manner that is impossible to trace. The power of speech is purified. The higher self in an adept controls both inaudible or mental speech and audible speech. Through the law of testing and trying, the errors of past incarnations are burned away. This means that during the lifetime of a person becoming an adept, all those errors are brought to self-conscious awareness to be erased. This happens as situations occur over and over in different ways until we get it. These old errors are stored in the personal memory of past incarnations, in the Jupiter center, the chakra above and behind the solar plexus. Memory of past incarnations is withheld from self-conscious awareness until we have gotten to the point where we can be aware of these experiences without blaming or aggrandizing ourselves. Each of us has done everything. We have all been beggars and kings, victims and oppressors, killers and healers. It becomes impossible to judge others once we come to this realization. This burning is not a pleasant prospect from the personality level, but gradually even those errors arising from the collective memory of humanity are eliminated. As an adept, the human being has been lifted up to a new level of being beyond most of us. He or she remains among us to heal, to comfort, and to radiate peace and joy to us all. We started this journey with the devil, associated with the sign Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. And now we return to Saturn, born anew. We have always been co-creators with God. Now we are conscious co-creators. In this tradition, we are not seeking to escape the mundane world. We are seeking to live differently, and by our thoughts, words, and deeds, to raise the vibratory level of the material world. This concludes the 7 stages of spiritual unfoldment. Please join in the discussion in text or in voice.
And I must say that there's always a period of time where we have to think about all the things that you have just said. This is a very powerful presentation, and I feel wonderfully affected by it. Yes, Tara says this is so amazing. It's incredibly uplifting all by itself. So if anyone else would like to speak, please type a 1 in the text box. Tara also says, thank you so much, Enjah. Okay, we have Joe saying, this was great. I like the lives, a life of perfect freedom, perfect health, perfect joy, a life that administers this in daily circumstances. Well, I think you just invoked something pretty wonderful. St. John says, thank you, Enjah. I'm so glad you came. And Tara would like to speak, so take it away, Tara.
Thank you. This is amazing information, and it just feels like it's more of an affirmation of fundamentally, I don't know, I want to know if other people feel the same thing. Is this something that you, deep down inside, that you knew was true, but you've never felt like you could believe it, or well, that's my question. Thank you. It seems true, but this is the first time in my life I've been allowed to know that it's actually a fact. And I thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Does anybody else feel that? And if so, please talk about it. According to this tradition, there are adepts living on this planet in bodies, not just somewhere out there, who are invisible to us. And they are giving us all this wonderful encouragement all the time. They're radiating these principles all the time. And we need to just tune into that energy and know that the universe wants us to live and be well and be happy. It's really important, I think.
Tara, I think I know exactly what you were talking about, because I feel the same thing. This was wonderfully verbalized in a powerful way. Danny says, we are all one, and we all have the same knowledge. I've seen the same ideas appear everywhere and in everyone, even the most random person. Well, that's pretty lovely. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else, if you'd like to speak, please type a 1 in the text box. Okay, go ahead, Joe. Take it away.
Thank you for the talk. This is a little more esoteric, and you may not want to cover it till you kind of dealt with the general, but could you explain a little more about the symbolism of the Chariot card? I've told you all that before, but a couple of different times in my life I've been told by people that I respected that my life is very much associated with the Chariot card, and that's why I'd like to know a little more about the symbolism on the card. Thank you.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. Let me enlarge the image of Key 7, which is what it is named in. Whoa, that's pretty big. What it's named in this tradition, Key 7, the Chariot. Okay, I'm going to raise it up as well so we can see all the parts of it. All right, starting from the beginning, this is Key 7, and the number 7 is very important in every spiritual system I know of, and it refers to the 7 traditional chakras in the etheric body. The letter is Keth, which means the fence or field, and this is the field of personality, as I said in the talk. The personality is represented by the Chariot, and it is pulled by these 2 sphinxes, one white and one black. So it represents the opposites, but in each of them, there is something of the other color. So there's some black in the white and some white in the black, like the traditional symbol for Cancer, which is 69, that the interlocked commas, the Zizaji, I think it's called, the black and white symbol of the Tao. And so that shows, first of all, sphinxes represent riddles. And they're pulling the chariot, but they're at rest right now. But normally they'll be pulling the chariot, so events or circumstances in our lives, whether we consider them pleasant or unpleasant, give us riddles that we have to figure out. And so both unpleasant and pleasant experiences pull us along our path. All right, the body of the chariot is a cubic stone, so that represents Aben. That is a Hebrew word that means the stone, but it is composed of the words Ab, Father, and Ben, Son. And that is what Jesus referred to when he said, the Father and I are one. When a person reaches the stage where they can live from Tiferet, in other words, they become a lesser adept, and that initiation or advancement can happen on the inner or on the outer. And every one of these levels has, every one of these Sephirith, that would be Tiferet, the yellow sphere in the center of the tree of life, which is lesser adept. That's the grade of the Rosicrucian grade of lesser adept. But because there are 400 trees, there are 40 levels of lesser adept. And then that unfolds further when the person becomes a greater adept, and there are 40 levels of that, and an exempt adept, another 40 levels, so you have 120 levels of adeptship. 400 trees of life, so that is 10 trees in each world. So that's very involved, but I won't go further into that. On the chariot is a shield of purity, it's white, and the emblem on there is the lingam yoni, which represents the unity of the masculine and feminine energies. This would be in the personality. And above it is a gold circle with blue wings, and that's very similar to the caduceus, the staff of Hermes, and it's also represented in the Egyptian symbology, the winged sphere, and that represents the uplifting of these energies to the crown chakra. And we go up to the crown and we link that and perfect that area of the body so that we can receive divine energy through our personality. But then we come back down and live from the heart. We don't always just go up there and stay there and live from the head. And not only that, but we come back down to Saturn, which is the lowest path on the tree of life, representing the root chakra. So we really come down to living from or in the root chakra. And that's where we begin and that's where we end. We go all the way up and then we come all the way down. And all these parts of us are activated along the way. Yes, there are blue wings, so that represents subconsciousness or water in this system. And the gold sphere represents the gold of the regenerated personality. Okay, so a lot of opposites are represented here. On his shoulders are the faces that we use for the theater, the smiling and frowning, so positive and negative, and they're moons, so they refer to subconsciousness, and they're blue, so that's subconsciousness again. This is a subconscious function. It happens below our self-conscious or daily awareness. He has a canopy above him, and that is a starry canopy. So his body, that is his personality and body, have become the entire universe. The body of the higher self is the universe. No matter where he is, he's at home. And he lives through each of us. It's a matter of making this a conscious awareness. We are always expressions for the higher self. God lives in and through us, and we live, move, and have our being within the mind of God, is according to this tradition, and I think most spiritual traditions. Behind him is a walled city. So again, we're talking about the fence. And behind him also is a river. So the river of subconsciousness that comes from the skirts of the high priestess. So she is the number 3. So that represents Bina, the substance. And I think, as I showed before, this path comes out of Bina, the cosmic mother, the black sphere on the tree of life, and it moves down to the cosmic will. So this is a very, very high and important path. It's the path of allowing the will of the one to express through us. We have to consciously connect with the higher self and say, as I said before, I will look upon every circumstance as a particular dealing of God with my soul. And sometimes it's not fun to do that. If you have a car accident and you say to yourself, I look upon this circumstance as a particular dealing of God with my soul, it's kind of difficult. It involves surrender when it's an unpleasant experience. When it's a pleasant experience, it's, hey, great, this sunny day, and, I'm sitting under a tree, and we're having a picnic, and this is circumstance is a particular dealing of God with my soul. Oh, great, fun, good. It's the difficult ones that are tricky. But when we do that, then the higher self begins to really, really work. And that's when, like I said, the key 14 comes into play. Because we can't sense the samskaras from the rational mind, at least at first. So this is the same guy. The guy in the chariot and the angel in temperance are the same higher self. It's the warrior king in doing different things with us. And also, I wanted to say, and I know I've departed from the chariot, but I think it's really important to note that this key 21, is an androgynous figure. There is no more 3. There's no more. We saw in key 20 that there was a man, a woman, and a child, and the child was just being born out of the 3-dimensional reality that we know into the 4th dimension, the spiritual 4th dimension. Well, this person is that child all grown up, and he, she, it's a she man, he, she is dancing. I mean, dancing on air. This is our goal. This is who we are potentially. And some of us here may already be in this state. None of us can know for sure. And like I said, if you're around somebody that lives this, they are a joy to be around. They may be very quiet. They may not be the leader in a group. They might be just a little quiet. They might be the janitor. But whoever they are, whenever you're near them, you're going to feel good. They don't have to tell you anything. They don't have to say, hey, I'm a big deal. I have arrived. I'm an ascended adept. No, they're not going to say that. There's no need. And some of these concepts cannot be expressed, so they're not going to always talk about the secrets. And I can't. I don't know them, for one thing. I don't know all the deep secrets. Above the level of what we call adeptship, which is expressing and living in the egoic triad, the blue, red, and yellow spheres on the tree of life. Above that is the supernal triad. And there are, in the Rosicrucian grades, which you can read in the True and Invisible Rosicrucian Order by Paul Foster Case, in the grades, once you get past the personality and you enter lesser adept, then you unfold into the greater and exempt adept levels. There are 3 more levels, and these are the levels of mastery. In Bina is the grade of Magister Templi, or Master of the Temple. Well, we know the temple is the body or the personality. It's the temple within. Then the next highest grade above that is Magus, or the magician, and that's the gray sphere, wisdom. And then the highest grade is called Ipsissimus. And this is the person in any group who has the highest level of connection to God, or whatever you want to call it, who expresses most perfectly the highest level of energy, let's say. And that person, whether it be, like I said, it could be the janitor, it could be, it could be anybody. That person dominates the group, whether they speak or not. And according to tradition, there are 40 levels of Ipsissimus as well. There are 40 levels of each of these Sephiroth. So each grade has 40 levels. So if you have 400 trees and they each have 10 Sephiroth, that's 4,000 levels of advancement. So anybody could be anywhere. And like I said, even in an incarnation where they're just doing a regular job, maybe they're an engineer or maybe they're a doctor or a philosopher or something, and they say, oh, well, I don't believe in any of that stuff. Okay. They need to focus on the physical world in this incarnation. They are sent here, and they are not to work on spiritual unfoldment. They are to work on helping humanity cope with the physical circumstances of our lives. So anyway, the Ipsissimus of the world, of this planet, should be, or is, according to this tradition, one person somewhere, probably in the Himalayas or something. I don't know where they are, but they could be walking around amongst us. We don't know. And they wouldn't ever say, hey, I'm the Ipsissimus. No. Someone in these upper grades is above the egoic level. And that's called crossing the abyss. We talk about that, you hear about that in the Western mystery tradition. Oh, crossing the abyss. Well, it's going from, Joe says, if you meet the Kether on the road, you should kill him. Yeah, it's up to you. Whatever you want to do, it won't matter to them, because someone who lives at that level can create a body instantaneously whenever needed and then dissolve it. They have the power of life and death. Not over others necessarily. We all have that. We can all kill. God forbid. But they can dissolve their body and then create a new one somewhere else. So it's pretty amazing the stuff that can be done, supposedly. Now, I cannot prove this to you, but I don't think it can be disproved either. So now my rant is over. If you'd like to comment or have another question, please.
Well, that was wonderful. I love it when you speak it up about the cards, or the keys, rather. Joe, thank you for that question. I really felt the depth of my understanding become more apparent, too. Thank you. And Enjah, I liked the addition of the stories. I thought they were wonderful.
Well, of course, there is much more to this than anything I can say in a talk. And that's why I gave you those links to different authors who all have a slightly different viewpoint on it, and the traditions and the organizations they have created. I mean, Dion Fortune created Servants of the Light in the UK. You can study this stuff. This is studying. I have
Right.
I have worked on myself for many years, and I was pretty crazy and confused for many years. But once I found this path, it really helped me straighten out. It helped me resolve a lot of issues, and it was just an amazing transformation that I've undergone. I was a very rough gem indeed.
Okay, we have 4 more minutes, and I would love to have you present the seeds for your pondering of the new series that you would like to present. Can you do that now?
All right, what my idea for the next series is to talk about the tarot keys as paths on the tree of life. A lot of people don't really grasp the tree of life, and I'm not sure how many talks will be in this series. I was thinking I would go by triads, the supernal triad, the egoic triad, and then the personality triad, and then below that, the kingdom or the body or the physical manifest universe. I don't want to do 22 talks. I know, I'm lazy, what can I say? But if I can break it up into triads, it might work well. So that would be called the Major Arcana on the Tree of Life.